Hey there, welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Yeah, let's go. Your top story of the day, some heavy words about Iran coming out of Donald Trump. We found out he made himself available to press questions when he was meeting with Netanyahu yesterday. So it's Trump, it's J.D. Vance, it's Pete Hegseth on one couch, and then they have Netanyahu sitting by himself in a chair at a 90-degree angle to them. And then there's another couch across from him, but I only got to see their legs, so I don't know who that was. But he was asked about this meeting with Iran. There had been rumors. You're meeting with Iran on Saturday? Yeah, we're meeting with Iran on Saturday. Oh, well, what's going on with that? So before I start interpreting it for you, let me let you hear it for the first time, just untainted by the outside world.
On Iran, two questions, please. First, if you can give us more details about where the meeting on Saturday is going to take place.
I can't tell you that. I can just tell you there's a major meeting going on between us and Iran, and that'll take place on Saturday, and it's at top level.
And the second question about this. A lot of people think that those talks are not going to lead anywhere because the Iranians will never give up their nuclear program. If diplomacy fails, is the United States, under your leadership, ready to take military action to destroy the Iranian nuclear program and remove this threat?
I think if the talks aren't successful with Iran, I think Iran's going to be in great danger. And I hate to say it, great danger, because they can't have a nuclear weapon.
So is that a yes?
You know, it's not a complicated formula. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. That's all there is.
So
we can't have it.
Ready?
Right now we have countries that have nuclear power that shouldn't have it, but I'm sure we'll be able to negotiate out of that too as part of this later on down the line. But Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And if the talks aren't successful, I actually think it'll be a very bad day for Iran if that's the case. Yeah.
Okay, so before we go forward in what this means, let's go backwards. And okay, we can only go backwards a few months before I make my first point. This level of transparency, openness, just taking questions without knowing who's asking them, without knowing what they're going to ask, and doing it for long periods of time, just unscripted, unprepared, unedited, for all the world to see. That is more open, honest communication than you got during the entirety of the Team Blue presidential effort in the last cycle. Kamala Harris didn't do it. Former President Biden didn't do it. They would come out and they would either have a pre-recorded interview where they knew the questions in advance and it's in a safe, friendly, allies setting. Not Trump. Trump just goes out there and I don't even know who you are. Who are you? What's your question? That's what we were asking for with Kamala Harris. And, you know, if Democrats are doing any soul searching and wondering, you know, why was there a lack of enthusiasm for the last election cycle? That's where I would start. Make yourself available. At least pick somebody who can handle such a situation. And you might not like Trump's answers, and you may think he's a little sloppy or inarticulate with his responses or juvenile or whatever, but at least he's trying. At least he's doing it. It's more than the last guys did. And I was making that point about him Sunday night. He was on Air Force One. And I imagine, you know, the thought process was about this shallow. It was like, well, I'm sitting here doing nothing. Might as well stand up, walk to the back of the plane where the press is hanging out and just answer some questions on camera, live, unscripted, totally off the cuff. Anyone can ask anything and we'll just deal with the consequences, whatever comes out. So first off, kudos for that level of transparency. Now let's go even further back and stop making political points here and start looking at what we already have on the record, because this Iran thing is not happening in a vacuum. These Iran deals are something that is now just a regular pattern of life that you've had to observe through the last few presidents here. They get in there and they want to make a deal with Iran. And the premise is we can't let them have a nuclear weapon. Now, when Obama did it, Obama told the world that 99% of the world liked his deal with Iran in 2015.
I'm hearing a lot of talking points being repeated about this is a bad deal. This is a historically bad deal. This will threaten Israel and threaten the world, and threaten the United States. I mean, there's been a lot of that.
Will it threaten the hum in your microphone?
What I haven't heard is, what is your preferred alternative? If 99% of the world community and the majority of nuclear experts look at this thing and they say, this will prevent Iran from getting a nuclear bomb, and you are arguing either that it does not, or that even if it does, it's temporary, or that because they're going to get a windfall of their accounts being unfrozen, that they'll cause more problems, then you should have some alternative to present.
All right, so now let's give Obama half credit. He's right. He did a deal with them. They still haven't got a nuclear weapon. That's good. But it did infuse them with a whole bunch of cash that they did cause more chaos in the region. So half the criticism was correct. And half of Obama's stated intent actually did work. But how is that due to Obama's deal? Well, we don't know. We don't. It's hard. You know, money's fungible. Who knows how much money they would have spent without the deal? Who knows if they would have gotten the bomb without the deal? I find it really suspicious, because how long did it take for us, and us, I just mean the United States, we weren't alive, but how long did it take the United States to do the bomb, to get a nuclear bomb? The Manhattan Project, right? So what, less than 4 years? We just gathered the greatest minds in the world with all the information that we had available to us in 1944. Didn't have a calculator, didn't have a smartphone, didn't even have a 56K modem, didn't have a speak and spell, nothing. We didn't even have those little viewfinders where you could see 3D pictures. But how can we do it with 40s technology, with no computers, only knowing the stuff we knew in the 40s? Like, we didn't even have 50 states when this was going on. We didn't even have color TV. And we did it in 4 years, and these dudes have been actively trying to do it for, what, 25? Depends on when you want to start the clock. 40 years on the long run. Maybe 40, let's see, when was the revolution? 79? So what, 46-ish years? And we know that they've had a nuclear program, and they've got centrifuges, and they've been spinning uranium. We know for at least 20 years. Persians aren't dumb people. And I use the term Persian because Iran is just a few tribes. I'm talking specifically about the Persians. They have a long history of being good at science and being good at math and figuring things out. And there was a time and place in world history not that long ago where that little area was the most scientifically advanced place on Earth. And it blows my mind. Look what they do when they come over here. We have great Persian scientists. We have great people. I had an 8th grade algebra teacher that was Persian. So he got me all gassed up when I was a kid. Now I've read your history. Big fan. Cyrus, Darius, Xerxes, all that good stuff. These people can't come up with nuclear weapons? What the heck is going on? So I'm totally suspicious about that. But when Obama says 99% of the world liked his Iran deal, you're going to hear from the other 1% of the world. What was Donald Trump saying when that deal was signed in 2015? And we'll compare that to what's being said now. And I'll be joined by Dr. Jeffrey Brodeur from Rigaku to break it down on a little bit more granular level. So, possible escalation or deal with Iran in a meeting Saturday that sounds like it's pretty high stakes, according to this soundbite I just played for you. Details coming up on The James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Our first story today is the tough talk. There is a meeting that's going to be had between U.S. officials and Iranian officials to work out a deal, and the deal being premised around the idea that Iran has a nuclear program and they can't be allowed to develop a nuclear bomb. Well, I'm kind of suspicious of this whole enterprise here because Iran has been at this for around 20 years and they still hadn't managed to come up with the bomb. I mean, what are they? Is there some sort of sabotage going on? Is there an internal saboteur? I remember the story about how we made their centrifuges spin. I think we broke into their system and burnt up a bunch of their centrifuges and set them back for a year. But I don't know. I've always found this situation to be quite suspect because you've been told since John McCain was running for president in 2008 that Iran is just months away from getting the bomb, and we can't let that happen. They're like 3 months away. They're like 9 months away, and therefore we've just got to bomb them.
That old Beach Boys song, Bomb Iran. Bomb, 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 bomb. Anyway.
So that is the John McCain's of the world excuse to bomb Iran. It was Obama's excuse to give Iran billions of your dollars. Trump didn't seem to do much with it. He killed Soleimani the second they popped their head up, and then they just laid low for his 4 years. And then, strangely enough, Joe Biden also found an excuse to give Iran billions of your tax dollars. And if I had a nickel for every time a Democrat president in your lifetime invented some strange excuse to give them billions of dollars, I would only have 2 nickels. But that's still kind of a lot. Dr. Jeff Broder back on from Rigaku. He's an expert in chemical, biological, radiological weapons, nuclear. So perfect person to ask. Dr. Jeff Broder, this meeting that is happening on Saturday is being promoted as a high stakes meeting. Are the stakes really that high?
Well, they should be if they're not. And it's good to be back with you. I appreciate it. As long as they're talking and not shooting, that's a good deal.
So what's your response to my confusion on how Iran has been pursuing a nuclear weapon openly for 20 years? I'm sure it's longer than that, and haven't been able to come up with one in modern technology when they have computers and the internet and, you know, the trappings of 2025 when we did it in 4 years in the 1940s.
That's a very good question. I have no answers. I have more questions than that. I wouldn't compare them to the United States. I try to compare them to North Korea that still did it in less than 10 years. But they have actively pursued, they expressed an interest in the 1950s, which caused the U.S. under an Atoms for Peace program to gear their energy to peaceful exploration and nuclear power plant sort of end states. In 1970, they signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which is the binding legal document that we are holding their feet to the fire because they ratified that treaty and said they never would pursue nuclear weapons, but their actions and their words speak differently.
Well, no one buys the idea we're just interested in commercial electricity production. No, you're not.
It's an oil-rich state. Why do you need a nuclear power plant?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to buy your fuel from anybody. You're standing on it. And I think we have the great Americans at Langley to thank for some of the diversion efforts that they sent them on.
Is that a CIA reference?
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay.
Yes, sir. They led them, down a rosy path and led them to believe through some disinformation campaigns, and it probably set them back a number of years. They were also able to manipulate their imports for parts and things, so that when they arrived and they screwed bolt A to bolt B, it didn't work. It was the wrong size. Things like that add up over years. But you're right. At this century, I think I wouldn't put a mark on the wall in 1967. So call that 1970. So that's about 50-something years that they've had waned or increased interest in nuclear weapons. Certainly between 1980 and 88, when Iraq was beating them on the battlefield. They wanted a nuclear weapon, but I don't know. They're just not the sharpest knife in the drawer, are they?
They haven't seemed to be, but we also have, I mean, proxy wars, plural, going on with Iran right now. When they were lobbing all the missiles and drones at Israel last year, and we were shooting them down. I mean, that's kind of a hot situation there. That's not a cold war. That's a hot war. And then this whole thing with the Houthis, that's just a proxy for Iran, if I'm not mistaken. So we do have sort of two different fronts going on against these guys right now.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis are all part of the axis of resistance. They're surrogates for the Iranian government because remember, the Iranian military is not an expeditionary military. You're not going to see a brigade of Iranians deploy to another country. They don't know. They can't do it. That's their weak point. They've been trained, organized, and equipped to guard their borders and allow other people to do their dirty work. You know, if Israel decides that they want to do an airstrike this month, it's going to be a whole lot easier than it was last year when they went in almost unconfronted by Iranian air defense forces because there's no Syrian Air Force this time. They can use all of that airspace as a shortcut to get there. And if the United States provides direct support, and that is any fighter aircraft that's Iranian flies, it dies. Any maritime vessel that looks like it's hostile or is part of the Navy, it sinks. It's not too difficult. The Iranians are. I don't know that they've been this weak or this cornered in a long time. I think the president knows that, and he wants to take the opportunity to put them. We call it compassionate coercion, right? The right thing for you to do to survive next week is to come to this talk and agree. The hard part is going to be getting to yes. And I don't know if that's feasible. I don't know if there's an ending to this story. They live happily ever after because the leadership in Iran wants Israel eliminated as a country, as a people, as a history. And we won't allow that to happen.
You think we'll ever get back to the Iran that we had before the Islamic Revolution? Guys running around in suits and ties, women wearing bikinis on the beach, and it just being a normal place again. And the fact that, not that they're abnormal, it just kind of looks like the Old Testament now.
No, it's easier, and I think we're pretty close to it, to be honest with you. We just need to get over this hurdle. And what I mean by that is there are some brilliant young adults in Iran that were educated in Western Europe and the United States. They know what right looks like. They're sitting on a country with immense resources. They can turn that country around pretty quick and be a leader in the free world. They just need to rid themselves of the leadership and the regime that they've got right now. And that's going to require them to do it. I think they'll have plenty of support, but the young adults of Iran have got to be fed up, and they've got to change. They've got to call for an action, a change in leadership. If they do that, then that's an easy solution. If they don't, and Khomeini remains in power, then we'll be playing this game of containment or whack-a-mole with Iran.
Yeah, I still hold quite a bit of optimism for this situation. I hope it goes well on Saturday, and I really appreciate your expertise on this. Dr. Jeffrey Brodeur from Rigaku, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, coming up next, how'd your IRA and 401k do today? How'd the market do? Did it rebound? I mean, it's going to close in about an hour, but I'll give you an update on your retirement accounts next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. How's your stock portfolio doing? And for some people out there, you're like, I don't own any stocks. Well, if you have a 401k or an IRA and you're just throwing money in some target date fund, you own stocks. They may be wrapped up in an ETF or a mutual fund, but you own stocks. You have some kind of investments. And actually, I was looking it up yesterday. 66% of millennials own stocks at this point. And we think of millennials as kids and young adults. They're like 27 to 42-ish now, or 44, depending on 45, or wherever you want to start the clock there. A lot of people started at 1980, which actually makes Miss Parker a millennial. Hi, Miss Parker. Things were looking pretty good earlier today. I think I ruined it, though. Stocks were rallying for most of the day until the James Show started, and then it just dipped into the red territory. But it was kind of a gradual slide down. Now, there's still reasons to be pessimistic with all the tariff stuff flying around, but also there's little green shoots of optimism. Scott Bessent was asked about countries negotiating coming to the table, and the number keeps getting higher and higher.
I haven't seen anything from them, but Larry, I can tell you that there are 50, 60, maybe almost 70 countries now who have approached us. So it's going to be a busy April, May, maybe into June.
So maybe 70 countries are already reaching out and negotiating on the tariff situation. This thing, I feel like it might wrap up in just a few weeks, maybe a few months at the latest. But I am starting to doubt if we will even think about this for 5 seconds a year from now. Let's ask Kathy DeWitt from DeWitt and Dunn. You hear on the weekends here on WBAP. Kathy, what do you think? Is this going to be a short-lived tariff war, or are we going to still be worried about this a year from now?
Well, it could be short term now, but I think, if we take a look over the next 12 months, we could have another tariff war, right? So there's a lot of whiplash going on right now. And if we all knew what the answer was, we would know how to invest correctly and wisely. Would you agree? Especially what you were just saying, James, you started coming on the air and then the market went down today.
Right. Well, see, you passed the smell test that I was giving out yesterday on the James Show, where if anybody says with certainty what they think is going to be happening a year from now, they're lying to you, because nobody knows. You can have a prediction. You can have like a scenario, like a likelihood of, 60% chance there will be a recession, or a 40% chance that we'll still be dealing with the tariffs. But anyone who acts like they know, this is going to be terrible for the economy, I'm really suspicious of those people, because none of us really know.
No, we don't. But I mean, the challenge is you've got to make sure that your portfolio is balanced correctly. You need to take a look at it. For a lot of people that are out there that just buy and hold forever, I mean, depending upon your age, you might need to change your allocations, look at things a little bit differently. But, don't panic. That's rule number one.
Yeah, and I hear a lot of
panic.
frustration from people who you just clearly don't have an understanding of what it means to be invested in the stock market. If you're just going to be in all stocks, don't be upset when stocks go down 20% and your portfolio goes down 20%. That's what you set it up to do. And so I try not to, blame the victim in a situation like this, but if you're unhappy with the way your portfolio performed, then you don't have your assets allocated properly. You're in the wrong investments. You're probably too overweighted in stocks or whatever other risky thing that you're in. So a lot of that just is in the poor hands of the people who set that up.
Yeah, I agree with you. But, one of the things I tell my clients all the time is if you can't handle the ups and downs of the market and think, look at it from a long-term investment and you're going to freak out every time, then you don't need to be in the market.
Yes.
I mean, if you can't handle the ups and downs, why are you there? There's other alternatives. There's other things you can do with your money instead of panicking every time we see red on our screens.
Well, let me ask you a couple more impossible questions, but, we'll take our best educated guess at it. Is this the bottom of the drop, or is there still more room to fall? And then how long will it take to recover? Two totally impossible questions. I would just like to hear what you say about it, Kathy.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that it's over. I think it's going to fall a little bit more. We're going to see what happens here over the next week or two. But you have to look at it from a different perspective. There's going to be some great buying opportunities, but you've got to really have a plan in place, and you can't have all of your eggs in one basket. And if you have a great retirement plan or a financial plan in place, this shouldn't be making a big difference in your portfolio anyway, right? So then let's take a look at what are some of the opportunities are going to be here in the future, and let's take advantage of them. But I don't think that we've seen the end of it.
Well, also, there's a big concern for people who are really close to retirement or already retired, they can't really weather volatility as well as the rest of us who are still going to be putting money into our accounts for the next decade or so. But good news on that front, Social Security checks, some of them are going to be going up next month because they ended the windfall elimination provision. Most people don't know what that is, but for the people that do and they're affected by it, this is a big deal.
It's a huge deal, but anytime you can get extra money and you're going to get a pay increase, regardless if it's Social Security from your investments, that's great news, especially right now with what we're seeing. Having any good news is a win-win for everybody.
Right. And if you don't know what we're talking about, if you have a government pension, a lot of times they won't let you get your Social Security check or your full Social Security check unless you have 30 years of credits worked into Social Security. So if you were exempted from Social Security, it's designed to prevent you from double dipping. And now they've removed that rule to where, hey, that's nice and generous here, but that's not good for the long-term actuarial table on the Social Security Trust Fund.
Well, we're going to have some big problems with that down the road. I mean, we've been seeing all the reports, and I think, going back to, your comment about millennials, and we take a look at, the Gen Z, they're going to be the people that are really going to be impacted by the decisions with Social Security. I don't necessarily think that people in our age bracket or a little bit older are going to be impacted, but you've got to really start saving money like you mean it, because you're not going to be able to count on the government to take care of you later down the road.
All right. We hear your show Sundays at 11 o'clock on WBAP?
Yeah, 11 and 4 p.m. after a couple of decades plus.
All right. There you go. Kathy DeWitt from DeWitt and Dunn. Appreciate it.
Thank you, James.
All right. Coming up next, we'll break down some of the moves a little further in the economy. And I just want to stress so hard that all you people who are making these hardcore predictions about what you think the market's going to do, you need to just tap the brakes and admit that you can't see the future. You don't even know what the market's going to look like next week. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. The fun part about economic talk is numbers don't care about your feelings. Numbers don't care about if you're on Team Red or Team Blue. And we all have sound bites and the ability to go back in time and see what you said when the last guy did something similar. And if you're saying something different now, then that totally destroys your own credibility. So for those of you who are concerned, the market's being down, yeah, a lot of us lost some money when the markets take a dive like this. That's fine. Why do I still sound optimistic? Well, because I have a long time horizon. I know it's going to come back. I know it's probably not going to drop that far anyway. And I don't think the tariffs are something that's going to be here in a year or 2 years or 3 years. And I don't think all the tariffs are going to be repealed. But the tricky part about having the whole world aligned against you is that it only takes a few of them to step up and make a deal before the whole thing collapses. Because so like, for example, like last year when Joe Biden put a 50% tariffs on solar panels on China. Now, you remember how the media was crying and screaming about raising prices and inflation and all. Oh, you don't remember? Yeah, because that didn't happen. But all you have to do is go find someone else to make solar panels or make them locally, or a mix of the two, a change in technology. Somebody builds a new machine that's stick in a factory. There's all kinds of innovations and ways around this and alternative suppliers and whatnot. So all we have to do is find another country that's like, well, we'll take the technology that you have. We'll use our near slave labor, near free labor, because we're a third world country with a bunch of people not doing anything more productive than that. And you can still get your solar panels, maybe not as cheap as you got them from China, but pretty damn close. So, yeah, prices might go up, but it will be minimal and not pretty insignificant if there's other people who aren't standing firm on the tariff situation. And that's exactly what Janet Yellen said last year. I'm not going back in time to 1984 and pulling some stuff out of context. This was the Treasury Secretary for Joe Biden last year when he raised there were some other tariffs, but he raised a bunch of tariffs on China, solar panels, tungsten products, random stuff like that they were undercutting the U.S. market on. And at the time, I think a lot of people in the Team Red media were slapping their forehead and thinking, "Oh, I thought we needed these solar panels to save the world. I thought without cheap solar energy, we're all going to head to catastrophe and Miami will be underwater and it'll be hell on earth." Oh, no. You're actually putting a tariff on these guys. You just want to make them here so you can control who gets the subsidies and this is about control. That's the point that was made back then. But now it kind of reads a little different, because listen to Janet Yellen. I'm telling you, this was just last year saying tariffs don't raise prices.
As you have seen, there have been some experts, some groups, the National Retail Federation among them, who've expressed concerns that it will be U.S. consumers who eventually end up paying for these tariffs. As you know, polling shows that rising prices are voters' biggest concern right now. So I'd ask you to speak directly to them. Will American consumers bear the cost of these tariffs?
I don't believe that American consumers will see any meaningful increase in the prices that they face.
As you have seen, there have been...
All right, so there you go. Just last year, tariffs weren't economic catastrophe waiting to happen. It wasn't going to be a gouge on the poor, innocent victim U.S. consumers. It was like, there might be some price increases, but it won't be significant, won't be noticeable. But now, you're supposed to be scared. Don't buy it. No need to freak out. Be a little optimistic. Show a little backbone there. Coming up next, what did Jasmine Crockett say dumb this time? Something about picking cotton. I'll let you hear from her so I don't get in trouble for this one. But I have a little bit of cotton picking history to sort of go with the next soundbite. And so now you're thinking, oh my goodness, what is this going to be? You'll find out after the news break here. But also, I'm doing a segment in the 4 o'clock hour. I think I need your help on it, because I'm not very good at this. Where do people who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, where do y'all go to meet? Like single people? Where do y'all go to meet? This is something I hear from my single friends on an all too regular basis. I hear it from listeners. People email me. I see it online. I see people posting about it on social media, how just terrible the dating scene is for older adults. And the apps aren't much help. But look, if you have a secret app the rest of us don't know about, and don't just call in and say church, and I don't need you to call in at all. You can send me an email at WBAP.com. James at WBAP.com. You can put a Facebook message together or leave a comment on the YouTube video that's streaming right now. However you want to get me a message, just let me know. For those of you who have had some success in dating as people over the age of 40, where is a good place to meet singles? We'll talk about that in the 4 o'clock hour. And I just want to include some of your suggestions because I don't have the answer to that at all. I've been with Miss Parker since 2007 and haven't had to really think about such things in a while. And I am amused endlessly watching some of you people go through that process at my age. All right. What did Jasmine Crockett say next on The James Show? I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Welcome back to the big show. We have a new segment on this show by popular demand called What Did Jasmine Say This Time?
Jasmine Crockett, queen of the liberal tea.
Bleach blonde, bad built butch body, Governor Hot Wheels, and he is a hot ass mess, honey.
Queen of the liberal tea.
You know, and speaking of singles, people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, she's single, never married. She's good looking. I wonder if she has the same issue. Where does she go to meet people? Maybe we should have her on to talk about that. I don't think she wants to come on to talk about politics, but we're going to be doing that in the 4 o'clock hour. Where do you meet single people past the age of 40? But in today's edition of What Did Jasmine Crockett Say This Time? She's saying we're done picking cotton, which I guess technically she's not wrong.
The fact is, ain't none of y'all trying to go and farm right now. Okay, so I'm lying. Raise your hands. You're not. We done picking cotton. We are. You can't pay us enough to find a plantation.
Okay, well, that's still not a thing anymore. No one picks cotton by hand, but let's just go ahead and address like that first sentence there. None of y'all want to be farmers. Well, 2% of us are farmers. Most of us aren't farmers. That's true, but there's not nobody it's not that nobody wants to be a farmer. My dad wants to be a farmer. There's people out there. Where do you think our food comes from? There's plenty of people that want to be a farmer. In fact, in most schools, I don't know if they had a FFA at your private school in St. Louis, but we had an FFA in Bug Tussle, and pretty much every surrounding town. You got the kids in their dark blue corduroy jackets with all the embroidery on it. And they're going to these FFA meets and they're judging goats and milk. Like in the scene from Napoleon Dynamite, when they have to, he's like, drink some milk. He's like, this cow got in an onion patch. And he's like, correct. Yes. Remember when they were doing the FFA meet? So that's not something that is totally unseen in your world or my world. I mean, if you would have to live in a pretty staunch, densely urban blue bubble to not even come across people that like farming or want to be farmers, or really where I'm from, there's a lot of people that just do it for fun. Like they're not even a professional farmer. They have a day job and then they just keep a plot of land. My parents, they grew coastal hay. So yeah, there's a lot of people that not only do they like it, they do it for fun. And even if it doesn't pay the bills, even if it's not their main job, they just love it so much, they just do it anyway. There are a lot of people who are down with farming. Now, I am glad that we're not doing the cotton picking anymore. However, I just it's cringy that this is associated with slavery now, because when I was growing up, my grandmother would tell me stories about how, during the summer, they had summers off, and sometimes if the harvest was later, they might get to miss a little bit of school because everyone in town would go to the cotton fields and start picking, and you could just make some side money. In fact, one of my grandmother's friends, Herschel Wheat, who I think is dead now, but he tells the cutest stories about how he remembers being 3 and 4 years old, and he would go with his mom to pick cotton. Now, she didn't have a job. She was just a housewife. But, it's an easy way to make a couple bucks, and you can do it on your own schedule, and you get X amount of dollars per giant duffel burlap bag of cotton that you pick. And he would go out there and he would try and help her. But he said he would get tired halfway through the day, and he would just sit on his mom's now halfway full cotton sack, and she would have to drag him around in the rows between that. But look, okay, we're past that. All right. We now have these machines that pick cotton at a rate that is just totally impossible by regular humans. In fact, one cotton combine can do 6 rows at a time. It can do 10 acres an hour. It does the work of 250 manual laborers who are picking cotton by hand. So we are way past that. But another thing you might want to notice there, not just in the content of what she said, but the actual presentation of what she said. Does she not know how to conjugate her be verbs? Now, we know she does. We have other clips of her where she's speaking properly and not speaking street. And I understand the phenomenon of code switching. We all do it. To a certain degree. You don't talk in front of your friends at the bar like you talk in front of the delicate, sensible ears of your grandmother. But this is just off the charts. She's playing a character. See, this is why I don't think she's stupid at all. When we were talking with Tim Young yesterday, who's the dumbest member of Congress, she's not even in the bottom 10, bottom 20. I think a lot of this is just PR, and it works. But just listen, the conjugation on this, terrible. Just
The fact is, ain't none of y'all trying to go and farm right now. Okay, so I'm lying. Raise your hand. You're not. You're not. We done picking cotton.
you not, we done picking cotton. You know, she went to extremely expensive, exclusive private school in St. Louis, only for the richest of rich. You don't think they covered conjugation at some point in her stellar academic upbringing? Or maybe when she got to college, maybe when she went to law school, she has a Juris Doctorate. She's got multiple degrees. She's a lawyer. You don't think she knows how to conjugate better than this? And then the final salvo here.
We are. You can't pay us enough to find a plantation.
I have problems with that too. I submit that Garrett would go pick cotton if you paid him $1 million a day. I would do it for a much lower sum than that. You probably have a number in which you would do it. I love this fantasy that we're just these effete, soft, tenderfoot babies. We're Fabergé eggs, and we're scared. We couldn't handle picking cotton. So what? So Democrats want to import dark people to come be your agricultural laborers? Didn't y'all do this already and it didn't work out too good? It's not looked upon too brightly in the history book, is it? So yeah, when you have the today's edition of What Did Jasmine Crockett Say This Time? This is a doozy.
Jasmine Crockett, queen of the liberal tea.
Bleach blonde, bad built butch body. Governor Hot Wheels. And he is a hot ass mess, honey.
Queen of the liberal tea.
Mark my words, she will convert before our life is over. She will be a Republican at some point. I know that's way out there, but that's what I do. I say dangerous things that other people only think. But coming up next, we're going to get a report from how things are going on in Austin. And after the session is halfway through, the Texas House of Representatives finally passed a bill. And you're going to hate it. It's absolute trash. State Rep Brian Harrison will explain next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, homeowners, a lot of storms coming through. We still have some more storms to go. But if you see any signs that you might have a problem with your roof, missing shingles, a rotted piece of wood, maybe some flashing that looks like it's come up a little bit, you have nothing to lose by calling Blue Ribbon Roofing and getting their free inspection. They'll send a crew out there to come look at it. And if nothing's wrong, they'll tell you, and then they'll give you a high five, and you can go on about your business. If there is something wrong, then we can have a chat. Is it going to be some easy fix or a patch? Or if you need a whole roof and you're sweating, oh, no, I don't know how to deal with the insurance company. Well, they do. They've done it before. They've done it thousands of times. So there's really no easy way out of it. If you're going to be a responsible homeowner, you got to take care of that roof. And I've made it as easy as possible. We have a family-owned local business, John, Tish, and Trevor. They've been in town for 31 years. They're going to be here for 31 more, and they'll come out. And it's someone you can trust. It's not a sign in a yard. You didn't just Google roofing companies near me. You have a team that has hundreds of 5-star Google reviews, so you don't just have to trust the clever guy on the radio. Go to blueribbondfw.com and then check it out yourself, and then take advantage of the free inspection. If worse comes to worse, they'll help you with the insurance. And you mentioned you heard it on WBAP, The James Show. You get a free ridge vent ventilation upgrade. If you don't know what that is, you don't have to know what that is. It's a great addition to your roof that you're going to be glad you got for free by mentioning WBAP. But it starts with you going to the website, blueribbondfw.com. blueribbondfw.com. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Thank you for all the submissions I'm getting. In the 4 o'clock hour at 4:30, we're going to be talking about, I don't know, I may do this at 4 if I keep getting swamped. I have friends who are single, and they ask me, because I'm in a happy marriage, how do you meet someone these days? I don't know. I haven't had to do it in forever, and I feel bad because I have no advice to give you people. So I'm asking you to give me advice so I can pass it along to people that might help them, because I am worthless in such situations. But I know a lot of people are going through this in my personal orbit, meeting people at 40s and 50s and 60s. I love hearing the stories about how much of a disaster it could be, but I want to hear more positive stories too. So send in your recommendations on where to meet people at an older age and not just a hookup app. And we'll cover that in the next hour. Right now, though, I have another just god-awful, terrible segment to do with the great Brian Harrison. I mean, we might as well just play the Omen theme every time you come on. He's a state representative out of the Midlothian area, and he's been giving us regular updates on the Texas legislative session for 2025, and it's an absolute dumpster fire. However, at least you actually passed a bill this time, Brian.
Yeah, we sure did, and I feel like there should be a sign over the entrance of the Texas House floor that says, "Conservatives, abandon hope, all ye who enter here," because that is what it is like. If you're a fiscal conservative in Texas, things are not good for you. Yeah, the Texas House, after 11, 12 weeks of total inaction, except for the occasional Beyonce resolution, we finally passed a bill today. And what does the bill do? In fact, the bill gets better. The bill came out of the DOJ committee. That's right. The Texas House of Representatives followed President Trump's lead, and they stood up a DOJ committee. Well, what did the DOJ committee pass today on the floor of the House, with just about every Republican, by the way, voting for it? Oh, it passed a bill to empower the bureaucratic state by enshrining Chevron deference into law, the same Chevron deference that the Supreme Court just struck down. Well, let's see, what else did the bill do? Oh, yeah, it grows government, it increases spending, it expands the bureaucracy, and it gives more power to the executive branch of government instead of the legislative branch, which is the people's branch. Oh, and by the way, it now officially, because it protected Chevron deference in Texas, Texas courts are now officially more liberal than federal courts. I wish I was making this up, but unfortunately, everything I said is 100% fact, and it just goes to prove that campaigning as Republicans to cut government and reduce spending, apparently that's just something that most Republicans want to do around primary season. But when it comes down to actually governing in the capital of the state of Texas, at every opportunity, most Republicans down here just vote to grow government, increase spending, and we all know what that means. Taxes go up too. So I wish I had a better update for you, my friend, but things are just not getting better. In fact, they're getting worse down here.
No, that's all right. State Rep Brian Harrison, they're all terrible so far. So we actually have done something about it. We don't just gripe about it. We made the unofficial Rhino list, and I've been passing that around. And when people say, what can I do about it? This is the list. This is the people we need to primary. If you want the list, I'll send you the link. It's on WBAP.com, but it's probably scrolled way down and you won't be able to find it as easily as just sending me a message on Facebook or email or whatever. I'll send you the list, and let's keep putting that out on Twitter, X, Facebook, all that good stuff to get that out there. Because the next question is, when do we get a chance to primary these people?
Well, so filing deadline for folks to run is at the end of this year, and then the primary is next March. But you know what? I actually think people should take a stand right now. There's an opportunity for elected Republicans, even if you're one of the ones that sold out and voted for the Democrats' choice, Speaker Burrows, you can take action right now. I made a motion last week that hasn't been made in decades because I'm sick and tired of the unconstitutionally lawless corruption, and I made a motion to vacate the chair. I want to force a vote right now. Let's do this again. Speaker Burrows, we need to have a vote to remove him because he has committed what I think is the biggest form of voter fraud. Voters gave Republicans all the big majorities in the Texas House, but he sold the voters out by cutting a deal with 50 Democrats and those 36 rhinos to empower the Biden-Harris agenda. And he's lied. He tried to unconstitutionally enforce work and votes, even when we didn't have a quorum present. He let the Democrats write the budget in secret in violation of the House rules to fund DEI and transgender ideology. He needs to be removed. So if you've got a Republican that represents you, you call them and you ask them if they are supportive of the motion to vacate Dustin Burrows so that we can finally put a real Republican in charge of the Texas House. They could do that right now. We don't have to wait till next November. Let's support the motion to vacate the chair and let's get him out of there and get a real Republican.
Right. And if you want to find out if your representative is one of the turncoats that is voting to expand government and grow it and do the opposite of what the Republican platform should be, we have a map. It's part of the list. You can find out if you live in one of these districts that has a rhino in it and do something about it. Now, I heard you on a friend of mine's radio show, and I learned something from you that broke my heart. How bad the free state of Texas is when it comes to licensing requirements.
Oh my goodness! No, so let me take this up 2 seconds to go back. Texas has a reputation for leading in liberty and freedom and small government and low taxes, but I'm going to be real direct with the Texans that are listening right now. Your government has just been coasting on that reputation, and in many ways, we are acting much more like California or Washington, D.C. than the great state of Texas. And this should break your heart, and it should make you angry that, in fact, the state of Texas, forget this myth, the lie that we're a low-regulation state. That is just not true. And, in fact, the state of Texas, I'm going to say this slowly, the state of Texas has more occupational regulations and red tape and licensing requirements than every other state in the union. And, yes, that includes California and New York. There is more bureaucratic occupational regulations in Texas than every other state in America. And I'm sick and tired of Texans have the wool pulled over their eyes and being defrauded by the Republicans that they have elected to protect their freedom, to cut government and get their taxes down. And what they've actually been doing under the corruption down here of the pink dome in the swamp of Austin is they have been secretly colluding with Democrats to grow government, increase spending, increase regulations, and yes, increase taxes, and that includes property taxes. On the rate we're going right now, James, you're going to hear a lot of bluster about property tax relief. Let me tell you, if something doesn't change, everybody's property tax bill is going to go up after this session's over. That is the trajectory we're on right now. I filed over 40 amendments to the budget we're going to fight on this week on Thursday. They're only going to give about $3 billion back in property tax relief. $3 billion out of a $24 billion surplus.
Hang on, Brian. They're waving at me. We've got to take a break. Can you stick around for another segment?
Yes, I got it.
All right. State Rep Brian Harrison from the Midlothian area giving you an update on the Texas legislative session happening down in Austin. We'll continue with him next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. We're continuing with State Rep Brian Harrison from the Midlothian area. And what a just colossal, huge, embarrassing failure the Texas State Legislature has been in this session. But we don't just get on the radio and gripe. We try and do something about it. We first made the Rhino hit list. It's got a map and a list of all the Republicans that you sent to Austin that immediately when they got down there, they started coalescing and voting with the Democrats who do not have your agenda at heart. And on top of that, Brian, luckily being down in Austin, can actually file bills. And so instead of just griping, you actually have pen to paper on a proposal to add to this budget that would, accomplish property tax cuts or a return of money or a rebate check? What else in your bill?
Yeah, well, let's just start by telling folks the bad news is that the state of Texas, while President Trump and his Doge are cutting government and reducing spending and trying to figure out a way to get tax money back in the pockets of taxpayers, the state of Texas is about to blow out the budget. I mean, the budget they've written is a liberal, bloated train wreck. It increases state spending just in 2 budget cycles, 42%. And people wonder why their property taxes, are not going down. But no, but I want to have solutions. Look, I love this state. I want Texas. We should be leading the nation, freedom, liberty. We should be the number 1 state for liberty in America. And so what I've done is our budget is absolutely terrible. We're going to debate and vote on the budget this Thursday, so just a couple days from right now. And I have filed amendments to basically rewrite the whole thing the way a real Republican. If Texas was led by real Republicans, this is what the budget would look like. I found $90 billion that we could cut simply by stopping funding government entities that are pushing transgender ideology and DEI, and then take that $24 billion surplus that's just sitting around on your money, take some of the rainy day fund, because we've got almost $30 billion. We're blowing through the cap. We are sitting on piles, tens and tens, maybe as much as close to $100 billion, just piles of overtaxed money from hardworking Texans. And if we would just take the money that we're already sitting on, that we've already taken from you, as well as defunding all of the liberal, leftist, Marxist agenda that, yes, the Texas government is funding, we could overnight cut every Texan's property tax bill just about in half and immediately put our, that means starting this year. Imagine if your property tax bill was down by 40 or 50% from what you paid last year. We could do that if enough Republicans in Austin acted like Republicans, and even better, we could put our state on a path to eliminate property taxes almost completely over the next 5 or 10 years if we took bold action today. So I filed 38 amendments to basically rewrite the budget that would cut property taxes almost in half immediately. It would end and defund DEI and liberal gender ideology in our state agencies and our public universities. It would stop corporate welfare, including the hundreds of millions of dollars we're sending to liberal Hollywood, which I still can't believe I have to say in a Republican state.
What else is in the corporate welfare? Because that's the first thing I thought of was the Hollywood, but you didn't say Hollywood. You said corporate welfare, which kind of betrays the idea that there's a lot more going on out there. What don't I know about?
Well, there's a whole lot of corporate welfare that's coming down the pipe. I mean, first of all, we reinstated something called these 313 tax abatements last session. And what that does is it lets rich, woke, multinational Fortune 500 companies come into Texas. And these guys have tons of money, and they don't have to pay property taxes. And it shifts the property tax burden to the ma and pa businesses that have been servicing their community for generations. They're having to pay full freight or even pay more on property taxes. And there's a whole ton of these companies. Like pretty much if you think of a big major company, there's a good chance that the Texas government has used your tax dollars to entice them to come to Texas. By the way, this has included countless green energy wind projects over the past several years. We've got corporate welfare and something called the Texas Energy Fund, which is basically putting taxpayer money at risk to big energy producers. I want to get rid of that and use all that money to lower taxes. But yeah, on the property tax thing, I got to say one more word about that because a lot of folks don't know. Last session, we already did this. We gave $200 million to liberal Hollywood last session. So I hope everyone enjoyed paying their property tax bill because it could have been $200 million lower. And this year, they want to take that $200 million and turn it into $500 million in this cycle and $1.5 billion. I just learned this, $1.5 billion to liberal Hollywood over the next few years. This is straight up socialism, and it's putting Texas taxpayers last when the job of government is to protect liberty, and it's about darn time we put Texas taxpayers first instead of the liberal special interests that clog up the hallways down here with well-paid lobbyists and movie stars trying to bilk the hardworking men and women out of their paycheck. I've had it.
Well, it also sounds like y'all been so busy and working so hard, you could probably use a long weekend somewhere in there. All right, State Rep Brian Harrison. Thanks for the terrible update. Not that they don't deserve it, but hopefully good news will be coming eventually.
Well, we're not going to stop fighting, James. I appreciate the transparency you bring in. God bless you, and God bless the great state of Texas.
Right, and for those of you listening, I'm really enjoying Brian Harrison's Twitter feed, X feed, whatever we call it now. If you're looking for the one guy that is giving you the regular reports, I kind of have to check in with this guy about once or twice a week just to see if it's gotten any better. So follow him online, or follow me online, or follow us both online. That's your update. I know you're not very happy with it, but that's all I got for you. Thank you very much, State Rep Brian Harrison. Coming up next, we have measles still raging in Texas. In fact, the number is bigger than ever. It's almost dropped away from the headlines, even though we have a second death. That's all right. I'm doing it anyway. Even though we have a second death in Texas from the measles. Why I'm suspicious of this whole outbreak, coming up next. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was in Texas this weekend, not for a good reason. He's the Health and Human Services Secretary, and we had a second child die from the measles outbreak in the Mennonite community over in by Seminole. What is that, Gaines County? And so he came down here to sort of check it out. And that's the third death overall from this outbreak. Second death in Texas. There was an adult in New Mexico just across the line that died of measles as well. But the news is quick to point out over here in Austin American-Statesman, and then I read another article on PBS, that all three of these people were not vaccinated. But I talked to a virologist, Dr. Benjamin Newman from Texas A&M, their top virologist. He's been on the show saying if you got the measles vaccine many, many years ago, you likely have very little, if any, protection from that. And he recommends adults get a booster. Now, I can't wrap my head around this. Which is it? Are you in serious danger of not having coverage from the measles vaccine if you've never had the vaccine? And if you've had the vaccine, but it's been a long time ago? Because then he comes down here and RFK says that he not only is okay with people getting the MMR vaccine, measles, mumps, rubella. He says it's on X on Sunday, he said it's the most effective way to prevent the spread of measles. So we've been using this MMR vaccine for over 60 years. It's even older than old Parker here. It's rated at 97% effective against the measles after 2 doses. But I question the idea that coverage goes away over time. Because who has had an MMR vaccine in adulthood? Have you? I haven't. What percentage of adults do you think are past that 10 to 20 year threshold? Probably most of us, all of us almost. I mean, it's got to be like 99%. Who goes back and doubles up on their childhood vaccine boosters? I mean, I'm in my 40s. When was the last time I had a vaccine? Forever ago. Since I was a minor. I didn't get the COVID vaccine. I don't get the flu shot. I don't do any of that dumb stuff. Well, I don't want to call it dumb. I just don't do it. I make the personal choice that I'm a pretty healthy guy, and I'd rather just take my chances here. But you can't have it both ways. You can't say, well, these anti-vaxxers in the Mennonite community are not following the science because they're refusing to get vaccines, and that's why they're suffering. They don't have any protection from vaccines. And then at the same time say, if you haven't had the shot in 10 to 20 years, you don't have any protection from the vaccine. Well, how is it that the rest of us don't have measles by now? How is it that it's not spreading faster and further? How is it staying confined to this Mennonite community and not going outside of it? So what is it? Does the MMR vaccine still give us protection or not? Because if not, then we should all be in the same boat as the Mennonite community. And I hate the fact that I don't have any answers for you, but I do find it interesting that RFK, who's been known for being anti-vax, and not anti-all vaxes all the time, but just at least a vaccine skeptic, to actually come out and say that, on X at least, that it was the most effective way to prevent the spread of measles. I did get the MMR vaccine. All 4 of my kids have gotten the MMR vaccine. Miss Parker has gotten the MMR vaccine. I mean, it was before I knew her. Miss Parker. And that's all we're going to do. Am I telling you what you should do? Man, I'm not a doctor, and I am not confident enough in my medical opinions that I would want to recommend something that didn't work out great for you. I'm just telling you how I feel on this one. I'm not getting another one. In fact, for the rest of my life, I don't foresee getting a vaccine. I am really burned from what happened during COVID, because we just found out that doctors aren't this noble profession that's all about doing the right thing and saving lives and the Hippocratic Oath. We learn that the medical community and doctors can be bought off just as easily as politicians. But anytime RFK is going to come to Texas and say something that kind of goes counter to what I expected, and this is happening in our own backyard, and this is something that we should probably be concerned about, I'll be happy to pass it along. I just found that, I don't know, not unsettling, but just wasn't near my expectations. All right. We have the Blue Ribbon Roofing 2025 WeatherCon coming up April 26th. This is going to count as the James Show listener meet and greet for April. I don't want to try and talk you into going to 2 events. I don't deserve that much of your time outside of the James Show. So come on out. It's on a Saturday. So for some of you people who've complained I can't do anything during the week or can't do anything on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, this is a Saturday, 9:30 in the morning till 1:30 in the afternoon. So if you have a soccer game in the morning for the kiddo and you can't make it at 9:30, come later. It doesn't matter. Show up at 11, 12, 1. The big reason you want to get there early is there's presentation that Storm Chasers put on. There's a lot of scientific stuff for the kiddos where like Dr. Brainiac, or what was his name, does these cool things that the kids just ooh and ah over. He's half clown, half scientist. It's just a whole lot of good stuff for the kiddos to check out. That's not only family friendly, it's educational, and you're surrounded by the Frontiers of Flight Museum. And since it's a free event, you get to see all the exhibits at a museum you would normally have to pay for. And it's all thanks to Blue Ribbon Roofing. They're the title sponsor of the 2025 WeatherCon. Come on out. Meet Hal J. Meet Brad Barton. Meet me. I believe we're going to talk Casey into being there. So April 26th, 9:30 in the morning. Coming up next, I've already got some great responses. I was asking earlier in the show, where do people meet each other? Where do singles meet each other over the age of 40? I have a lot of friends in this situation, some coworkers, some colleagues, some people that I downright hate are in this situation. But me being in a happy marriage, I have no advice to give. I am terrible. I'm the wrong person to ask, but I want to help. So I've been asking, where do you meet people? Do you have any recommendations? What has worked for you? And I've actually gotten some really good responses. If you want to get them in, send me an email, james@wbap.com. You can send me like a direct message on X/Twitter. You can send me a Facebook Messenger message. Just get it in, and I'm going to review some of these, and we'll help some people find love, or at least fight loneliness. Coming up next, I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Coming up shortly, how do you find a date when you're past the age of 40 or 50 or 60? Just trying to help some people out because I have no good ideas. But we were talking about RFK's visit to Texas. There's been a second child die in the measles outbreak. What's going on here? He said something nice about vaccines. I don't know. I'm still not taking it. I'm not going to get a measles booster. I don't care if people around me start getting it. I'm just going to take my chances. And I don't think I'm going to get another vaccine ever for the rest of my life. What do you think? 800-288-9227. Lindsay Granberry, you're on WBAP. What do you think?
Hey, I was going to just speak to the question you had about whether or not the efficacy can wane, because I had personal experience with it. When I went to nursing school, I didn't have my shot records from childhood, which is when you get the MMR. And so I had what's called titers done, which is where they pull your blood and they test your immunity for all the main things that you're immunized for. And my MMR actually did not meet the threshold that was required to be considered immunized. So I actually had to get it like in my late 30s just to be considered fully immunized. But I want to say one more thing about natural immunity, like acquired immunity through illness. I do think it's interesting that my chickenpox numbers were off the charts compared to what is required, quote unquote, to be considered immune based on the vaccine, because they didn't have the vaccine, when I was a kid for that. And so natural immunity, for me, that just showed me that if you get something like, for example, COVID, then you're going to be much more protected from severe illness the next time around if you ever should get it again. So I feel the same way as you about COVID. It burned me out on vaccines, even as a nurse. And but that's the whole thing with the waning.
Yeah, so if almost everyone in adulthood has no protection from the vaccine they got as a child, why isn't measles running rampant?
Well, that's a good question, but I really don't think you can apply it to everyone, because I don't really understand the function of how you lose the immunity. Does it have to do with blood loss, like through childbirth? Does it have to do with illnesses that you've had otherwise? Does it have to do with your dietary choices? Like, how are we metabolizing the immunity? I don't know. So that would be a question for somebody who knows more about it than I do. And it is an interesting question.
Well, you're a nurse. You probably know as much about it as the doctor standing next to you.
You would think, but not on this one, I don't. So I just know that I had to get it. And so I thought that was interesting, though, because that was not what I expected when I got those levels run.
Well, it's been my experience, and what little I have faced the healthcare system, and I haven't really been sick or anything, but I've been in the room when they diagnosed my kid, or my parents have had an issue, or a roommate, or Miss Parker when she was pregnant. And what usually happens is you go into some room, you have to sit down on a piece of butcher paper, and then a nurse comes in, checks you out, tells you a whole bunch of stuff, and then a doctor comes in a few minutes later. The only difference is he's wearing a lab coat, and he tells you exactly what the nurse just said. And so I most of the time I've seen a doctor or taken my kids to the doctor, I'm like, what's the point of you? We just need the nurses.
Well, I do appreciate that, and I do love nurses, as I am one. However, there is an educational difference and a licensing difference. Nurses are not actually allowed to diagnose disease.
Licenses mean nothing to me.
Well, but they do when it comes to making money. Like, I would lose my job if I lost my life.
And it shouldn't be so. But really, if you have been standing next to a doctor, watching what doctors do, having intimate conversations about in-depth issues, you are as qualified in my mind to be a doctor at this point, just from your experience.
Well, I'm on my way. I'm in grad school, so we'll see.
Well, you shouldn't have to go through all that, but thank you very much. We don't do that for mechanics. If you were just a guy that was standing next to a mechanic helping him out all day, after 30 years of that, I would trust you to fix my car. Tim in Waco, you're on WBAP. What do you think about this measles situation?
Yeah, so I keep hearing about the for the boosters. Anyways, I looked on the CDC website, and they say the measles and rubella, it's for life. The boosters required for mumps.
Oh, that's what it says on the CDC website.
Right.
Okay, so if that's the case, then we don't need a booster for measles. But a virologist told me, the guy from A&M had mentioned on a previous show, that he recommends, if you're concerned about it, getting a booster.
Right. But
all right.
For the what's it called? MMR. There is boosters for that, but it's anyways. The CDC website does say measles is for life.
Well, how come we're not running rampant with mumps? I know you don't have the answer to that, Tim, but there's a lot of logical contradictions here. Like if you're trying to follow the logical algorithm, the flow chart here, we're kind of crossing streams at a couple points. It's kind of driving me nuts. Michael, Grand Prairie, you're on WBAP. What do you think about the vaccine situation? Michael?
Yes, good afternoon. Having a personal experience from a family member with COVID vaccine who 3 weeks to the day had serious eye issues after that vaccine that were later reported in literature, which eye doctors knew about but were forbidden to talk about. I can assure you no one I know in a family member will get another mRNA vaccine. Now, I may get a flu shot, but some of these mRNA vaccines that are conditionally approved, and then you hear about this pneumonia shot they want everybody to take.
Nope.
If you listen to the ad, they say it might be affected by a conditional approval reevaluation. There's a lot of more due diligence people need to do before they get a vaccine.
Well, I didn't even have to do any research to know I shouldn't get the COVID vaccine because what I told, and this is pretty much what got me fired from a job, is my boss said, you can't come in unless you get the vaccine. Why don't you just get the vaccine? And I told him, I cannot pretend to not know that for my entire life, a vaccine, a medicine, any kind of treatment that hadn't been tested for at least 3 years was considered so dangerous by the FDA, CDC, the medical community, the media, academia, that it was literally illegal even for terminal patients. So even if you're in hospice and you're like, hey, let's try it, I'm going to die anyway. No, it was too dangerous even for that. And now I can't have a job unless I get a vaccine that hadn't been tested for 3 years. No, I can't pretend to not know things I know. And it blows my mind how so much of the population can. Like that was my big lesson from COVID is there's just about 40% of this country that'll do anything that's on the TV tells them to, because there's no explanation for that.
You were obviously a lot stronger individual than I was because they threatened me with firing and under the Biden regime because I worked in the defense industry. So more power to you that you stuck with it. And I was just trying to serve my country and keep defense products going.
Well, it wasn't that hard for me. You'd be very disappointed if you find out how little people make in radio. So it wasn't that big of a sacrifice. And plus, we get fired and canceled all the time. So it's like, I have to find a new job every 3 to 5 years anyway, except for this one show I was on for like 11 years. But yeah, I think we all learned some lessons, some of us the tough way. Thank you very much, Michael in Grand Prairie. Coming up next, Dallas sports media legend Jean-Jacques Taylor is going to set the stage for Luka Doncic making his return to play against the Mavericks as a Laker for the first time back here in Dallas. It's a little heartbreaking scenario for the sports fans out there, and you can share the drama with us next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there. Welcome back to the James Show. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. And when we do a sports segment on the James Show, we do it not as assuming that you're a sports fan. We're assuming you're a person who's probably just casually interested in sports, but you have a bunch of sports fans in your life. And it's nice to know what they're talking about and what's going on in their world. And so this is a way for you to be all caught up on the sports world without having to watch all the games. It's a time-saving technique is what it is. And we have Jean-Jacques Taylor, Dallas sports media legend Jean-Jacques Taylor, back on the James Show to talk about the return of Luka. Welcome back, Jean-Jacques.
What's up, bro?
So first, explain to the non-basketball fan, why do we care? This guy played for the Mavericks. He plays for the Lakers now. Why is it such a big deal that if he comes back and plays against us? We don't do this for other players that leave us.
Well, the main thing is Luka Doncic is one of the 2 or 3 best players in the NBA, and nobody in the world except Nico Harrison would trade him for anything. That's how good he is.
Right. Nobody but Nico.
Yeah, nobody but Nico. So the fact that he got traded to an iconic franchise like the Lakers, and the fact that he's returning to Dallas in his first game back, that's a big deal, man. The eyes of the NBA will be on Dallas. And, this is I've been covering sports more than 30 years, and I was in college when Herschel Walker got traded. So maybe it was something like that. It had that kind of feel. But I've never seen a team and a city so broken over a player getting dealt. And I've got a good friend of mine who's been a season ticket holder for more than 24 years. And he decided not to renew, in part, primarily because Luka Doncic got traded.
Well, I see the Luka Herschel Walker connection. It's kind of the same from the outside world as the fans still cared many games later and a long time later. But the big difference I see is the year before Herschel Walker got traded, we weren't even a playoff team. We didn't have a winning record. And so we were giving up something to obviously to use that as a rebuilding chip. We weren't in rebuilding mode when we got rid of Luka. We were in the finals last year. We had a team that could take you to the top and be on the cusp of a championship. And so when you're trading away your biggest player like that, this isn't a rebuilding thing. What is it?
The other part of that is typically if you decide to trade Luka for whatever reason, as dumb as it may be, okay, fine. You traded him. But usually, just like the Herschel Walker trade, you get back a bushel of players and draft picks, and something is there to make you feel good. Now, Anthony Davis, who the Mavericks acquired, is a top 75 player all time. He's a first ballot Hall of Fame player. Only problem is he's 31. He's been in the league since he was 20. He's old. He's closer to retirement than his heyday, whereas Luka is just now entering his prime. And so that, too, is part of the reason why the trade was trashed from sea to shining sea.
Well, did it make the Mavericks better? Or are they even going to make the playoffs?
No, it didn't make the Mavericks better, in part because I think the curse of Luka looms. Everybody they've had got hurt, including Kyrie, who was the main cog. If you had Kyrie and you had Anthony Davis and you had Derek Lively back from injury and you had Daniel Gafford back from injury, then you could say, hey, we got a chance. But Kyrie is gone, and so the Mavericks are languishing between 9th or 10th in the Western Conference. And so they may make the playoffs, they may not, but they're not going to have a long stay, whether they make it or not.
What has this done for the Lakers? Like, what did the Lakers do last year, and what are they poised to do this postseason?
The Lakers are always in the playoffs, man. They got LeBron, so they're always a threat. With Luka, they got 2 of the best players in the league, but they don't play a lot of defense. They don't have a lot of height. And so really, for me, the Lakers is all about the matchups. If they get good matchups in the playoffs, they could go a long way. If they get bad matchups, they could be out in the first round. Because, like I said, they don't have a lot of height. So if they were to face a team with a lot of height and a lot of size, they could have problems. But if they faced a smaller team that didn't have as much athleticism as them, then they could be a problem for them. So, Lakers are clearly a wild card going into the playoffs.
All right, going into the playoffs for hockey, the Stars finished in the Western Conference Finals last year. What do you think they're going to do this year?
It's all the Stars are all about. It's really kind of a Stanley Cup or bust season. Not to say that they should win it, but they gotta get there, and they should have a shot to win it. But the key for them is they got a bunch of really good players. They got a bunch of outstanding players. The problem with having a bunch of outstanding players, yes, there is a problem sometimes, is at the playoff time, you need one of those guys to go be the man. Everybody just can't be at the same level. Somebody's got to step it up and say, follow me, James. We finna go. And last year, they didn't have anybody to do that in the Western Conference Finals, and that's why they got beat. So somebody's got to step in. Maybe it's Ratnan, the guy that they picked up at the trade deadline. Who's
New guy, right.
Yeah, but they got to have somebody who leads the way and says, hey, fellas, follow me to the promised land.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jean-Jacques Taylor. You can catch him on the Jacques Talk podcast. What else you got going on these days?
Hey, man, you can always find me at www.jjtmediagroup.com.
There he is. Dallas sports media legend, Jean-Jacques Taylor. Getting you the sports update so you know what's going on without having to spend all that time watching the games. Coming up next, I've gotten some good feedback, and I'm going to share with you a story that's affecting so many people that listen right now. Where do you find good, decent single people to date? Where do you find a companion? What's the dating world look like when you're past 40 or even age 50? I have some advice that's already been sent in, but if you have advice you want to add to the conversation, email me at james@wbap, or you can call in now. I'll actually take calls on this for the rest of the show. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. We're looking for dating tips over 40. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there. Welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Let's do a touchy subject on the James Show. Yeah, we never do that. Dating woes for people. Dating when you're a teenager or even in your 20s, kind of the most normal thing in the world. And I don't know, it was pretty easy, wasn't it? Finding dates back then. I mean, especially when you were in school, you were surrounded by a whole roster of your hundreds of single people all day, every day, because no one was married when we were in high school. And then in college, it was still super rare. And then as you drift on through your 20s, I remember I didn't meet Miss Parker until I was 30. And I was kind of starting to get a little nervous about the whole situation. I was noticing, as you go through the NFL draft, the first round picks have already been taken. But luckily it worked out for me. But it puts me in a terrible situation. One of the just pitiful ironies of being in a happy marriage is I am no good. I have no advice for people who are trying to get in my situation. And it doesn't work like that for most things. Like if you want to be a success in business, you find a successful businessman. How did you get here? It's just the opposite, though. It's more like owning a car. Like if you've never had car trouble, you're probably a terrible mechanic. You've never had to fix anything. So I've been reaching out to you, the listener of the James Show and WBAP, to help the others out there, because there's a ton of people who are going through this. I see them. I am related to some of them. My wife's best friend is in her 40s, never married, and I love hearing her stories. One of my good friends, she got divorced a few years ago, and just listening to her go through this in her 50s, and she's beautiful. She works in TV. Hilarious stuff, but probably not fun for my friends to go through. So let's deal with some of this. Let's try and get you some help, because I think if you haven't already spelled it out or just know it painfully, there's some real obvious shortcomings in dating past the age of 40 or 50 that you just didn't have back in the day. For one is there is some truth to that, where the good ones are already taken. Not all of them, but for the most part, if you're a good catch, it's quite unlikely someone isn't going to snatch you up in the first, 20 years of your dating life. But there's some of them that get re-released back in the wild. There are some people who are great, but they married the wrong person and now they're divorced. And so there's a good one who's not taken, but now they have an ex, or now they have some kids to go with it. And that's a whole level of complication that you just never had to deal with before. You would think it'd be easier than ever to meet people with social media and dating apps. But from what I hear, that this is pretty much just for people who are looking for, hookups. So we'll just put it nicely like that. And so that's great if you just want to be a piece of meat and satisfy someone else's carnal desires. But I think most of us want a little more than that. You probably want some companionship and be respected as a human being. And I don't know, maybe some interesting conversation. So I was reaching out and I got some good feedback already. If you want to send yours in, James at WBAP.com, send me a Facebook message or reply to the video streams and I'll see it. But one of them confused me. Some guy named Jim emailed and he says divorced after 48 years, which, let's do the math real quick. That means he's at least in his 60s, right? He says he has met more women in traffic than anywhere. In traffic? How does he do that? I don't know. I wrote him back and I said, bro, explain to me how you meet women in traffic. And if he gets a note back to me before the end of the show, I'll let you know. I got a lot of joke responses when I mentioned this in the first and second hour. Someone whose name I will withhold says, my favorite place to meet is at many of the local brothels. Ha, 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 ha. Very funny guy who will go unnamed. But here's two really good answers. David says, my wife and I met at 50 years old on Our Time. So Our Time is uppercase. And I think I've seen ads for this. It's a dating app for older people. And so maybe it's not that all apps are bad. You've been on the wrong apps. You've been on the hookup apps, the Tinder or the Bumble or whatever else they got going on. Anybody else? Can anyone else say anything positive about Our Time? Because I am a big fan of age restrictions. I remember when I first got out of college, I didn't want to go to any bar or club that was 18 and up. And you have a bunch of children running around with X's on their hands. And I know, like, legally speaking, they're an adult. But I like the ones that were 21 and up because you didn't have to deal with this. These people were in a different phase of life. It was worthless talking to them. They're monsters at that point. And so the older I get, I would like to go to restaurants that are like 40 and up. You know, that way you don't have to deal with anybody's loud kids, or you don't have a bunch of 23-year-olds over drinking and yelling at the TV or whatever. So maybe our time, if anyone else can get some feedback on that, that'd be cool. It's like I don't know some of these apps. Another good one came from Alyssa. Alyssa had a great. This is probably the top suggestion I got, top piece of advice I got. She says workout groups seem to be a good one. I'm not speaking for myself, but I used to regularly work out at Camp Gladiator, and I know several couples in my age and older who met their significant others at Camp Gladiator. That's fantastic because look, not only do you share a hobby and a passion, you have some hope that they're in pretty good shape and they haven't let themselves go and they care about their health. But also, for something like that, it also means they have self-discipline. That is so huge. They have impulse control. They make good decisions instead of going out and hitting happy hour. They're working out. And maybe they still hit happy hours every once in a while, but they at least can mix in some health there, which comes to the only advice that I give, because it sounds good, I'm not even sure if it works. If you're looking to find someone else to be a companion, and more so than just a carnal partner, I would recommend diving into your hobbies. That's what I would tell you. If you're a musician, get in a band or join a choir or join the church band or go to the open mic nights or something like that. And you meet other people who share that hobby. If you like to get in your Jeep and go mudding and put ducks on your dashboard, well, go do it. Go do it a lot on the weekends and go do it with other people and join groups that do that. And then you're going to meet some other lady out there who likes going out in the flip-flops and a tank top and getting their Jeep all muddy and splashing around. And I think that's a good place to start because at least you already share an interest, which means you have the type of personality that probably mirrors or at least complements the people that you meet there. If you like some of the same things, you probably have some more things in common. And so that's the one thing I would recommend. What would you recommend? Dating tips for people over the age of 40, or who am I kidding? Over the age of 50 too. Dating tips, 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I got an email back from the guy who says he meets women in traffic. He says he just rolls down the window and says, well, I'll read it, what he said. He says, waiting at lights, younger women enjoy being told how beautiful they are from an older man. I am 70, dating a 32-year-old beautiful angel. What? Oh, my, no, whoa. Hey, that's fine. It's legal. You're consenting adults. Whatever works for you, cool. I mean, you're probably driving a Ferrari or something. But here's where the line is. This is the formula on whether or not it's creepy. It's half your age plus 7. If you are dating someone, or take your age, cut it in half and add 7. That's the cutoff on how young you can go without it being creepy. So for you being 70 years old, you could date someone, take it in half, 32, add 7, 42. You could date someone all the way down to age 42, and it's like, well, consenting adults, whatever. But once it gets below that, you're in creepy territory. And it's not, I'm not saying you're creepy, Jim. You're 32-year-old beautiful angel. She's a little sus as well. So, take me. I'm 47. Let's just round it up to 48. That would be 24 plus 7. I could date someone down to 31. If I start dating someone like 29, isn't that kind of weird? Like, you're in a way different phase of life. I'm already been married, 4 kids, gray hair. All right, Jim. Good luck with you. You're doing better than a lot of us, so maybe we should be asking you for advice. Carrie, Fort Worth, you're on WBAP. What's your advice?
Well, when you're in your 60s, you've already been married before. We used our time. I'm engaged, and we're getting ready to get married in Hawaii.
So why get remarried that late in life? Why bring paperwork into this? You can't just hang out and be boyfriend and girlfriend?
Well, I mean, I did put on the profile. I was just looking for somebody to just hang out with and go and do and just have fun, in life at my age. And, wasn't looking for somebody to absolutely, but once we found it, we're doing all of that, and we decided that, let's get married. So,
well, that's so good to hear, because
this is it.
Were you a person who had given up?
No. I have to say I'm a widow, and once that I got over that, was ready to date again. It's like I'm looking at what do I want to do, and somebody recommended Our Time and Silver Singles.
All right,
Silver Singles was not somewhere I wanted. I mean, I didn't like it, but Our Time seemed to have real people.
Well, that's fantastic. Another vote for Our Time. I hope you help somebody out today. I hope you help somebody find happiness with that, Casey.
Right.
Let's go to Nancy. Nancy, also in Fort Worth. You're on WBAP. Your dating advice.
Have a sense of humor. I'm on my 3rd relationship. First 2 husbands passed away from cancer. And the first thing all 3 of them said was, "You're funny as hell."
Well, were they funny as hell to you? Does that go both ways?
It does go both ways. But
right.
Have a sense of humor. Don't take yourself too seriously.
Well, what's with the cancer thing? Do you live next door to a lead smelter or something?
It sure appears like it.
All right.
No, one of them did grow up against a GM plant in Arlington. 3 members of his family died of cancer. One was a doctor, a pathologist. He died of a rare brain disease.
Good Lord.
Common to
Nancy, I got to tell you, so far, you're not very funny.
I'm not funny so far, but you know what? And I had a heart transplant, so, I've survived it all.
My oldest son is 17. I got another son that's 11, and they're just starting to kind of get interested in girls. And I'm like, if you want to get girls, be funny. Number one thing you can do is be funny. You can't control how tall you are. You can't control how bald you are unless you go to advancedhair.com. But for the most part, you're just stuck with the package that God gave you. Number one thing that wins people over, personality. Because we've all seen this guy that looks like a chud, and he has a beautiful girlfriend. And then you meet the guy and you hang out with him, and you're like, oh, I see why. Everybody likes you. You're a fun guy. You're right. Personality does go a long way. Maybe restricting your caloric intake, not being such a food enthusiast would help too. But personality can overcome a lot. Great advice, y'all. Thank you very much. Blue Ribbon Roofing's 2025 WeatherCon coming up April 26th, 9:30 a.m. until 1:30 p.m. It's going to be Frontiers of Flight Museum on a Saturday morning. So come on out, say hi. I'll be there. Hal J, Brad Barton, science demonstration for the kiddos and for the adults, and you get to see the whole museum for free thanks to Blue Ribbon Roofing. So come to 2025 WeatherCon April 26th. I'm James Parker. This has been The James Show. Mark Levin up next on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.